Welcome to the Hot Lava Podcast. Kevin Acee, Padres beat writer for the Union-Tribune. Ryan Finley, sports editor of the Union-Tribune. I joined him for our pre-series, pre-nationals Hot Lava podcast. And it's the Hot Lava that will take a part of this podcast. It's just hot lava that no longer plays for the Padres. Ryan, the horrible Nationals are a little more intriguing to Padres fans than, say, a normal team that comes in here 14 games under 500.
Yeah, that's true. It's, the Nationals, if there have been some bright spots for them during this rebuild, it's been number one, James Wood, a star left fielder for them, somebody who's looking every bit to be as good as a lot of scouts thought he would be in the big leagues. You've also got Mackenzie Gore. Strikeout master this year, their de facto ace, pitching really well. And then you've got CJ Abrams, who, he was an all-star last year. I mean, that's the haul for Juan Soto, right? And not to mention Robert Hassel III, who has made his major league debut this year. This is what the Padres gave up. And, our Tom Krasovic had a column today about it, essentially praising James Wood, but also saying that it was a trade the Padres had to make. Kevin, it was 3 years ago, but do you believe that that's true?
I do. I do agree with Kraz, and I recommend that column, and I recommend the story that Jeff Sanders will have up later today, which is more like a story, which has input from AJ Preller, from James Wood, from Jackson Merrill, and it's just an interesting thing to revisit now that James Wood is coming to Petco Park for the first time. I am just not going to fault a team for going for it. And that doesn't mean unequivocally, like you can question a signing, you can question a trade. But when you go for it and you're getting a player of Juan Soto's caliber because you have a team that is poised to make a run to the World Series, and you add Juan Soto and you say we're going to have him for at least two, and with the time you're thinking probably three pennant races, you got to go for it. Now, we can debate all day the players that were included, and you can debate whether you think it was worth it or not to go for it. But hindsight, to me, and I don't know what you think, but it seems awful easy to say, oh, that was not a good trade.
You can also look throughout baseball and look at former Padre farmhands. I mean, this is not the fire sale Padres of the 1990s. And I think that sometimes I have to remind myself of that, right? Sometimes you have to give up good players to get good players, especially somebody like Juan Soto. To simply look at James Wood and say James Wood is a star and Juan Soto is not even here anymore would be to be willfully ignorant of the players who they got back for Juan Soto, right? Including guys who have become, possibly 2.5 or 3/5 of their rotation at this point. And Kyle Higashioka and everything he did last year to help them. I agree with Kraz too. I think that that's a trade they had to make. That doesn't make watching James Wood at Petco Park any easier, probably, especially when the Padres have needs. And well, two of those needs right now are a starting left fielder and starting pitching. And we'll see Mackenzie Gore on Tuesday night. Both those guys could certainly be helping the Padres this year if they were still in brown and gold, probably.
Yeah, and the other debate on this one is James Wood or Jackson Merrill, and Jeff will get into that in the story. But because either one of those could have got that deal done with the Nationals, from I think the understanding that we all have now. Jackson was hurt at the time, I believe, but I want to point out that I don't know that the Padres. I can pretty confidently say the Padres are not a 93-win team last year without Jackson Merrill. And James Wood wasn't up until the end of last year. Also, and I don't obviously know James Wood as much as Jackson Merrill, but I've heard a lot. And I don't know that he is the force that Jackson Merrill is. And so that's why I was hemming and hawing on the 93 wins. Obviously, what Jackson Merrill did on the field was important last year. But what Jackson Merrill does off the field and will continue to grow into being for this team. I'm not saying James Wood can't be that, but that's not what people think of when they say James Wood. So I just want to point out, not only what Jackson Merrill will continue to do, or what we anticipate him continue to do in his career, but what he brings to a team, I think is huge. And I know that that's something that the Padres had in mind when they said, we're going to keep Jackson Merrill.
Yeah, no, I agree. Also, I think that there's something to be said for the fact that the Nationals are bad. I mean, bad slash terrible, right? And we lived this for a long time in San Diego. Just because James Wood is killing it with the Nationals right now doesn't mean necessarily that he'd be killing it if he was a Padre,
That's
right?
a fair point.
It'd be
Yes.
very different. You don't know how guys respond to different situations. You don't know how they get pitched, when you're a bad team. People will talk about CJ Abrams being an all-star, and certainly he was. But it's only because every team needs an all-star representative that CJ Abrams was an all-star. It's different. It's different when you're playing for higher stakes, I think.
Oh yeah, yes. Like a fine season, but I wouldn't be surprised, and this is my ignorance, and maybe I look like a fool when I say this, but like I wouldn't be surprised if his stats last year were better than this year.
Right.
But like he might not be an all-star this year I'm sorry, backward. But he might not be an all-star this year with better stats than last year because James Wood is going to be an all-star. And it's possible Mackenzie Gore is going to be on that American League roster of pitchers. Yes, I'm trying to support your point, and I don't know what I'm saying. But anyway, yes, James Wood, that is two great examples of young players getting a chance to grow into themselves. And I have no idea how many times, but it's probable that a number of times James Wood was pitched to because the Nationals were down 5-0.
Yeah.
So that's a very good point by you.
Yeah, it's it's just different. And again, the whole point of this podcast is to look a little bit deeper into sort of the nuances of things. Let's talk about Jackson Merrill here. He returned from the 7-day concussion DL on Sunday. Padres were walk-off winners. Jackson Merrill did a couple of things that I really liked. Chief among them was starting that relay home that really saved the game for the Padres. Not only did he cut the ball off at the outfield fence, was able to fire a seed to Jose Iglesias, who, and by the way, Jose Iglesias, look at Jose Iglesias, threw just a seed home to get the go-ahead run out at the plate. He affects the game in so many different ways, Kevin, even if he's not getting on base. How needed is Jackson Merrill at this point?
Huge. Interesting move up to second, making your big slugger, putting your big slugger in the 4-hole, Luis Arise. I get it. What wasn't working? And okay, let's try something here. And Mike Schilt put it this way, that it was to let Fernando Tatis Jr. and Jackson Merrill just ball out at the top. Okay, cool. If that gets something started, because the 1-2 punch as it has been constructed has not been doing it, that would be Tatis and Arise. So absolutely. And what does Jackson Merrill bring? That energy, still a 300 hitter, obviously not as hot as he was, but his batting average reflects that he's a 300 hitter. And eventually almost had a home run yesterday, had it brought back there in the 8th inning, brings some slug, and they just need to be at full strength, because if they're not at full strength, then that puts even more pressure on the guys who aren't performing on a regular basis that are being paid to perform. And of course, next topic, maybe Xander Bogaerts performing.
Let's talk about Xander Bogaerts. Kevin, are we going to jinx him? That's my first question. Xander Bogaerts is on a tear. A lot of them are singles, granted, but you know what? He had a game-tying double to the fence the other night. Is somebody
big double yesterday?
Yep.
Moved to third for Iglesias to bring him home.
Yep. Seems to be figuring it out in real time, and my goodness, is that needed. I know that he is loath to talk about what is working and what isn't, simply because he's been trying so many different things. Any idea what's behind this recent surge?
I guess simply letting his bat do the work, not trying to hit the ball hard, not trying to pull the ball, just being Xander Bogaerts finally. Victor Rodriguez always says it. That people in San Diego have not seen the real Xander Bogaerts like I have. And when speaking as Victor Rodriguez, who was the assistant hitting coach in Boston when Xander was a young player, also was their major league hitting coordinator when Xander was coming up through the minors. So Xander batting .579, that's 11 for 19 in a 5-game hitting streak. And that's what good players do, is they go on streaks, and then they also don't go 0 for 28. So that's the next step for Xander, right? Like, the hitting streak will end at some point, and just to not get incredibly cold and be that gigantic void in the lineup. But he just feels more connected, is his word. And I think that is just letting his bat do the work. And when he pulls the ball, it's not because he meant to pull it,
Right.
because Xander is best when he is exemplifying the Victor Rodriguez Petco Park hitting gap to gap. That is Xander. And so his bat it stays in that zone a long time. He does have a really nice swing. I'm no hitting coach. I'm just saying, like, when Xander's just Xander and he's not up there pressing and doing something weird and different that he didn't do yesterday, because he's working so hard and he's spreading so much that he hasn't come through, then Xander Bogaerts was a good hitter for a long time. Caught myself there. Almost said is a good hitter. He needs to prove to us again that he is a good hitter. But Xander Bogaerts was so good for so long that, while this is somewhat surprising and has everybody excited, it's like there was a point when this was just who he was.
Mm-hmm. And we're critical of Bogaerts on here, understandably so. He hasn't been very good as a Padre. But the facts are he has finished the season strong, years in which he's been healthy, right? Or he's overcome injuries to finish seasons strong.
Yep.
I still maintain that if I didn't know how much money he was getting paid per year, I'd probably appreciate him more, because he's not an objectively bad baseball player. He's a middling baseball player, and who plays a position, shortstop, where not a lot of shortstops hit. And so, it's that. But, unfortunately, when you give a guy that amount of money and it precludes you from making other moves, you expect superstar production. And that's just not anything they've gotten out of him lately.
Yes. And that's the one where, and the longer it went on, because I'm like you, I'm always loath to bring up the money. But the fact is, like we don't need to bring up the money for Jake Cronenworth, right? Unless it's to say, hey, look, that's what an $11 million player is, right? Like, but we don't need to bring up the money when a guy's making $3 million, $4 million. I mean, that's just what it is. Like 25 mil and being that bad for that long, that's exactly what it is about. Because you're right. Like, okay, that's a number 8 hitter or a number 6 hitter or whatever, right? But that's not what you paid for for a long time. So here's what I've been saying. I'm sure I've said it on here. I've said it elsewhere. I've written it. Because the number one topic for fans in correspondence with me is Xander Bogaerts. And it's always has to do with what you said, how much he makes and how much he's going to make for a long time, and how that has crippled the Padres. Okay, I can't argue with you that there's an issue there, that if he doesn't get better and sustain it, that the Padres have to figure out. But the best you can hope for in 2025 is for him to finish strong. That's it. You got to stop griping about the future, Xander. And you've got to just, if you're a Padres fan, just hope that the real Xander, this is the real Xander who shows up, because there's just not anything you can do. He's not going to get benched. Like, he's not going away. He's not going to retire. You need to, if you want your team to do well, you need to hope that this is the real Xander. Because
he is either then a productive player for the San Diego Padres, or has some value if the Padres say that they want to move on from him. Not that that's anything that's been talked about necessarily at this stage, but to build back up some value both internally and externally, that's the best you can hope for. I would also caution against comparing Xander to past Xander, right? Past Xander was really good. Maybe he can't be that guy again. But if he can be somewhere between where he's been the first 3 months of the season and that guy, right? There is some real value there. Maybe not $25 million worth of value, but value. Yeah. Okay. You kept me in that last part from totally disagreeing with you, and that's fine. We can disagree. Like, 25 mil means he needs to be old Xander, at least for a few years, and help this team win a World Series. But here's the value that he could bring. He's not going to get value where someone wants him.
He's going to get value where somebody's willing to take on a part of his salary and help the Padres out if they package him with some prospects, right? But guy with 600 OPS is just going to be like, yeah, you're going to have to give us your entire farm system to go along with us taking some of that money. So there, I'll give that to you. It's interesting. It's reached a point where unless he fixes something and it actually is like this 900 OPS guy over the last almost we got a little over a half left, and he finishes with a 8-something OPS, and that is exactly old Xander. I still think you have a question about the viability of Xander Bogaerts here long term. But I am the one who's been beating the drum and just trying to remind people how good this guy was. It has gone on now for 2.5 years where it's just so incredibly inconsistent that you wondered, was it going to get better? But I think it'd be an amazing story if this guy could finish being old Xander and then make us all excited going into next year going, hey, maybe you got the real Xander Bogaerts. And then we'll have to see and go on from there.
No, you're right. You're right. It's I think it has been encouraging though. I mean, he was a hit machine over the weekend in big moments too.
In big moments.
You'd like to see the slug come along a little bit better than it has, but you know what? These haven't all been singles, right? He's hitting the ball hard. He's hitting the ball to the fence. He's hit a home run.
He's a big doubles guy, and look, he played at Fenway Park. I mean, he got some doubles, all right. He's not a huge homer guy, but yes, there needs to be a little bit more there for him to be old Xander and for him to be valuable.
Right. Padres pitching Stephen Kolek tonight in the series opener against the Nationals against Trevor Williams, San Diego guy.
Is that tonight? I thought it was Mitchell Parker tonight.
Oh, hold on. Maybe you may have better info than me, Kevin.
No, I might have got it backward.
No. I'm just a guy here.
Hold on. Tomorrow. So
it is Mitchell Parker tonight. You were 1,000% correct.
Okay.
Stephen Kolek, may see the 6th inning, maybe even the 7th inning.
Padres 6 1/3 and 3 runs against the Dodgers. That's a pretty good. He's got a 2.86 ERA in his last 4 starts. And to your point, Mike Schilt, he talked about it, and I believe his hand was forced. Relievers were starting to let him down, making that what were the quote-unquote correct decision to pull his starters in that moment was not working out. So wait a minute. Even if it was the quote-unquote correct decision we had a chance here in this close game to have our bullpen bring us home, and so it was the right thing to do to go to the bullpen. Well, if they're not coming through and now we're overworking the bullpen, let's just let Randy Vasquez go because he's at a certain pitch count. And it almost backfired yesterday, but then it worked out, right? Like Randy Vasquez, what was it? Was it 6 1/3 and 2 runs? He gave 7. He completed 7. And he gave up the 2 runs in his last inning. But does that mean that was wrong by Schilt, or that was a bad outing by Vasquez? Or maybe should the Padres score more runs? And there they did. Cease went 6 1/3 the night before. So to your point, yes, these guys all now are going to be given the opportunity to go longer. Now, that said, you got Kolek tonight, and Robert Suarez, he pitched once in the last 4 days. Jason Adam got a day off. He did pitch yesterday, pitched pretty well. By the way, a little worried about Adam and Suarez at this point. I don't know if you are. But a little worried about that. But Morahone and Estrada brought home a victory the other night. It's not that that Schilt's not gonna rely on his bullpen, but we are going to see that in moments like the last couple days, he's going to be more prone to pushing his starters further.
Yeah, and I think that's good. I mean, one of the quotes from Schilt talking about Vasquez, and I thought that it was telling. As much as you can read into a Mike Schilt quote, he said, it's a huge 7 innings. He's earning more trust deeper into games and rewarding it. And so, I mean, what Schilt is saying there is, especially these unproven guys need to show that they're capable of going into the 6th, 7th inning. And Randy Vasquez, I know we talk about this a lot. I don't think we could say enough good things about what Randy Vasquez has been this year relative to expectations.
Yeah, and that big, yeah.
Yeah, we talked last year about Matt Waldron, right? Sort of doing the same thing, carrying them when guys were down. Maybe we will speak about Randy Vasquez in those terms at some point later this year, if and when the Padres get either Michael King or Yu Darvish back. We had Jeff Sanders talk to Michael King, I believe it was Friday night after the game. We had something in Sunday's paper on that. Man, it seems like a mysterious injury and not a lot of answers.
Yeah, been to see a lot of specialists. Everybody agrees that it's not structural, meaning it's not a dead nerve that requires surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everyone thinks he's going to be back, but no one will guarantee it, except Michael King, which you can't trust, just because the player is always going to say that, and of course, kudos. No one can guarantee he's going to be back, and that's scary. All right, it just is. But evidently, getting a little more strength, and baseball's a sport for weird, mysterious injuries because of just the way it requires the body to move, and it's just it's interesting, and I cannot imagine how terribly frustrating this is for Michael King. That
especially because Michael King's heading into free agency, right?
Well, yes.
I mean, there are two things that you want to show either the Padres, if you'd like to stay in San Diego, or all the other baseball teams, is that A, you're effective, and B, you're durable, right? A mystery ailment that almost nobody in baseball has ever had can't help his valuation in the eyes of the team.
I would think, I haven't asked anybody. I've heard it talked about, but not by anybody that would suggest that this is the plan, because there can't be a plan right now. But Michael King comes back super strong. Padres give him the qualifying offer, and maybe there's not a great market out there where one more year would really help Michael King, and Michael King is back next year. Maybe that could happen because of what you said. It's a really unfortunate timing for him. And obviously, yes, you're correct. That's a part of it. I just know also how important it is for him to compete and to win, and you can just see it on his face and his countenance. This is one of the nicest, most effervescent, just really, really happy guys, and that has obviously not been the case this last month. And
no.
It's sad. It's sad to see.
It is sad to see. It's disappointing. I mean, especially because he seems like a pretty hardworking, likable guy. One of those guys, and not just because I think he's one of the better quotes on the team and his dad's in the journalism business. But you hate to see stuff like that happen.
You always want to see the best on the field, except you don't want to see the Dodgers' best on the field all the time because they have too much money. But you always want to see the best on the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, right?
Yep.
That's why people wanted to see Paul Skeens. Even though that probably meant that he was going to beat your team that day, or at least he was going to hold your team scoreless for 7 innings, and they were going to have to win late. But you wanted to see Paul Skeens. You want to see the best on the field, and that's just a shame.
Yep, that is a shame. No update on Yu Darvish at the moment, correct?
What is next? I think, as you know, this last weekend, I was celebrating some birthdays. So I have not been around to check. If there's something in the last couple of days, forgive me. I think there'll be another simulated game coming up, but I do not know that.
Okay. Pitching matchups tonight. We've got Mitchell Parker against Stephen Kolek. Parker 4-8 with a 4.59 ERA. Kolek 3-2 with the ERA of 3.5. Tomorrow night, at least from what I'm looking at,
yes,
San Diego's Trevor Williams pitching for the Nationals. Is it still TBA on the Padres there, Kevin?
No, it's Berger, and it'll be his first home start, and I think that that'll be cool because he's had 4 on the road and he's faced 4 contenders. And he's done pretty darn well. It's a 2-something ERA as a starter. It's a 1.88 ERA overall as he had those 4 scoreless relief appearances. I mean, kid is he's got it. I mean, he doesn't have Paul Skeen's stuff, but he appears to have the confidence of a top line starter, and that is huge if you're going to make it in this league. And he also probably does have better stuff than we knew coming in. He's got a really good slider, and I just think he's been one of the better stories for the Padres this year.
Absolutely. And then we're talking about good on good. If you like that, Wednesday is your day. Mackenzie Gore going up against Nick Pivetta. Don't let Mackenzie Gore's 3-7 record fool you. He leads the National League with strikeouts. He's averaging nearly 12 per 9 innings. ERA of 3.19, which is even lower than Nick Pivetta's. Nick Pivetta 7-2, struggling this month to a 6.23 ERA. According to
he has a 5 ERA over his past 10 starts, and you know what the difference in those 10 versus what was it? The first 5 home runs.
Yeah,
averaging 1 a game. Yep,
yeah.
And you know, just mislocating the fastball most of the time. Though he did give up his first home run on a curveball this last start. But what did he do? 4 2/3, 4 runs against the Royals, and it feels like that you are just as, and the stats are sort of bearing it out, you're just as likely to get that as you are 7 innings and 2 runs from Nick right now. And that is more Nick Pivetta. Like, that's what you paid for. That's what you got, is that guy. The guy who can go out. He's going to eat some innings for you. But I think, what was it, 4 starts ago, 6 innings, 5 runs, right? And I think like 2 starts ago, it was 7 innings, 2 runs. And then in between those were some shorter ones with some more runs. Like, that's Nick Pivetta. That's why he's never had less than a 4.04. So he goes out on Wednesday against the Nationals, and he goes 6 shutout, right? Is that the guy you want as your number 1 guy going against the Dodgers? No.
Probably not. Probably not. No, you're right.
No, he did throw well against the Dodgers, so forgive me. Yes.
I always put you on the spot at the very end, and here's a Washington Nationals adjacent question. You ready? So news just came through. I don't know if you heard me sort of typing. News just came over that Steven Strasburg, San Diego State guy, West Hills High, has been named to the College Baseball Hall of Fame 2025 class for what he did at San Diego State. They're playing the Nationals tonight. Kevin, do you have any Strasburg stories?
I don't. I rarely came across him. He's married to a Fallbrook girl. That's about as close as we've crossed. I mean, I've been to their home. I know them. But that's about as close as I've come to actually, because he was at San Diego State when I was doing the Chargers. Right. And then, like, I covered a couple games he pitched, but, like, that's it, because he had nerve damage, by the way. That is one of the great careers cut short. Yeah,
no, it's true. He got a World Series ring, got a pile of money, and now he's back in San Diego. And I know was certainly super involved in their baseball coaching search that ended last week. He's somebody who I think wants to be involved with San Diego State going forward. So my guess is you'll see a lot more of Steven Strasburg probably now than you did when Steven Strasburg was pitching for the Nationals.
Well, couldn't be less, but couldn't be less. I know that he's a big family man. As a part of the reason he ultimately made the decision that, you know, need to stop this comeback. I need to be able to carry my kids around. I need to be able to play with my kids, and so he ultimately, I don't know if his body would have let him anyway, but he decided that he needed to just, you know, move on.
Move on. Does everybody in Fallbrook know each other? Is this what I'm learning?
When you grew up here, you didn't maybe know everybody, but you were one person removed.
Okay.
It's different now. A little bit bigger.
A little bit bigger. Awesome. Padres Nationals 3-game series starting tonight at Petco Park. That'll do it for this episode of the Hot Lava Podcast. For Kevin Acee, Ryan Finley, we'll see you next time.